Welcome into my channel, guys. My name is Dylan, and today we're talking about the Advanced Prototype Powertech in SWTOR 7.0 expansion, Legacy of the Sith. Advanced Prototype is an extremely bursty DPS with just enough sustain to keep up in long single-target boss fights. It's great for raids, flashpoints, heroics, dailies, and other solo content. AP can put out an insane amount of damage in a very small window and has decent AoE damage, very strong defensive cooldowns, and combined with a fair amount of raid utility, making it one of the top options for melee DPS. I'm doing something new with this video guide. I've put together this infographic, and you guys can feel free to screenshot it, or if you'd prefer to get the 4K version, the link to the download is in the description below. Please let me know down in the comments if you downloaded this and if you found it helpful and if you think I should do it in future guide videos. As you can see here, you want to get your accuracy to 2700 first, then alacrity to 2054 plus double your ping for lag purposes, and then put the rest into crit. For set bonuses, we need the Veteran Ranger package and Shock Trooper package, as well as the Overwhelming Offense and Flame Detonation Tacticals. Moving on to the rotation, Advanced Prototype is a priority system, meaning your next ability should always be whatever is off cooldown and the highest on this priority list. Unlike in a static rotation where you might delay a hard-hitting ability for several GCDs to allow everything to line up, you don't do that here. It's always the highest on the priority list that is currently off cooldown. You always start by applying Retractable Blade. This puts a very strong damage over time on the target, which is essential to giving the class some sustain, but also works with the class kit to give back heat, making resource management much easier to deal with. Anytime you hit a target already affected by Retractable Blade with a rail shot, you refresh the duration on the dot and cause rail shot to vent 5 heat. Keep in mind with the refresh on the dot, and the fact that every fourth ability will always be rail shot, you should never need to reapply Retractable Blade on a target. After Retractable Blade is applied, the entire rotation centers around proccing and applying rail shot. Rocket Punch, Magnetic Blast, Flame Sweep, and Flak Shell all proc rail shot and should be used every time the rate limit on the rail shot proc is available. One little tip I figured out to make this way easier to track is to go into your settings under the user interface section and scroll down to the global cooldown section and turn information text on if you haven't already. This will give you a little countdown on each ability for how long it will be on cooldown. When done properly, rail shot will be used every fourth ability, but that can actually be quite difficult to track in your head while also performing mechanics or listening to your raid lead drone on and on about how BioWare screwed over sword killers. With your information text being shown here, you should use one of the abilities that procs rail shot every time rail shot has 10 or 9 seconds left on its cooldown. This will proc rail shot, and with that rail shot proc, you can go ahead and like this video and then continue on with your priority system. Let's take a look at the skill tree. At level 23, you will take Jugular when fighting mostly single target bosses, and Retracted Refresh when doing bosses with lots of adds or while doing dailies and heroics. At level 27, you'll take Jet Charge to give yourself a lot more mobility in fights, and it's unlikely you'll ever need to change this one in PvE. At level 39, take Lingering Heat for single target fights. This one helps a lot with our sustain. And then you can switch it to Heat Zone for AoE fights, trash, and solo content. At level 43, Advanced Yield will give way more range to several of your abilities, effectively making the class semi-ranged. This one helps a lot on fights like Guards, where you can't always be in melee range of the boss. At 51, I mostly leave it on Pyro Shield, which will reflect a small amount of damage back at your attacker when Energy Shield is active, and which is great for adding DPS on fights with raid-wide damage. You could also sometimes go to Gyroscopic Alignment Jets. It is awesome for fights with lots of stuns and physics, giving you a ton of extra heat to work with. At 64, put it on Hitman and never ever change it. At 68, you'll want Hydraulic Overrides almost all the time. The speed boost and immunity from physics is just too good. However, there are some rare instances in PvE fights where that extra stun is needed and you'll switch to Electro Dart, but that is super case specific. At 73, Sonic Rebounder is the only real choice for PvE. This causes your Sonic Missile to give everyone around you, but not you, a one-time use Reflect Shield and can make healing much easier in tons of situations. I highly encourage aspiring Powertechs out there to start experimenting with learning all the places this skill can be used, as it's highly underrated. For offensive cooldowns, we have Explosive Fuel and Power Yield. Explosive Fuel increases crit chance by 25% for 10 seconds and should be paired with your shoulder cannon for the best effect. Power yield increases all damage done by 10% for 10 seconds, gives you a fully procced energy burst, and gives energy burst a 100% crit chance. You can use this in combination with explosive fuel and shoulder cannon to really pump out some high DPS. Especially if you already have a fully procced energy burst, you can pop explosive fuel, hit that energy burst, followed immediately by power yield, and then another energy burst that is a guaranteed crit, all while spamming shoulder cannon. You can do an insane amount of damage in a short burst. For defensive cooldowns, we have energy yield, Kolto overload, and power yield. Energy shield increases your damage reduction by 25% for 15 seconds. This is a very powerful cooldown and has a wide array of uses. Koto Overload causes your health to rapidly regen to 35%, but not above it. This can be very effective in super high damage phases of fights, or as a last-ditch effort to stay alive when doing heroics and other solo content. Power Yield increases your armor rating by 200% for 10 seconds. It can be used in a pinch if for some reason you end up tanking the boss for a short span, but it's really not all that powerful defensively. Power Yield is much better suited for its offensive capabilities. Advanced Prototype really just hasn't changed much over the years. The core rotation is the same, we just have a few new toys to play with in terms of tacticals and set bonuses and spec tree choices. The class still hits really hard, has high mobility, and is in my opinion the best emergency tank of all the melee DPS classes, and it's always a ton of fun to play. Thank you guys so much for watching, I truly appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.